Today, I'm joined by Scrum.org professional Scrum trainer Duncan Maddox, and we are taking a look at Scrum but. As in, we do Scrum, but we don't, and that. Let's find out what that means. Today, we are talking about the phrase Scrum but. We're doing Scrum but. Yeah? What is that, Dunk? What is Scrum but? Why do we hear this?
So when I'm running a training course, I'll have a lot of Scrum Masters come on the training course and they'll say, yeah, we do Scrum. And then sometime around the morning of the second day, they'll say, yeah, I thought we were doing Scrum, but we're not doing this, we're not doing that.
It's super common, cherry picking, right? It's cherry picking the bits of Scrum that they like, not necessarily the bits that work, but the bits that sometimes are easiest to do. So go on then, what's a great example of some Scrum buts you've seen?
I've heard people say, yeah, we're definitely doing Scrum, but our management allocate work to us during sprint planning. They do, they say that.
No, people say that.
People say that.
I don't believe it, Duncan.
So do we think that's a classic Scrum but?
That's got to be a Scrum but. This pull system, the team decide how much work to do. It takes the autonomy out of the team if they're just being dished out work. And they're not going to buy into the tasks if they're simply being told what to do, I would think.
Sprint planning is what are we going to do and how are we going to do it? And we really try not to focus on who's going to do it, because we want that shared responsibility across the entire team. And allocating work, as you say, it's the exact opposite of that. That's a classic Scrum but. Right, your turn.
So we do sprint reviews, but we don't have customers at the sprint review or stakeholders. It's too difficult to get their time. So we still have our sprint review, but there's no customers or stakeholders there.
Do we think that's a Scrum but?
I think that's a Scrum but, Duncan. Scrum but, ding.
We need a little bell. Ding, Scrum but. Yeah, because the sprint review is your feedback loop on what the stakeholders think of the increment, primarily, and what they want to do next. So you're not able to inspect and adapt if your stakeholders, if your customers aren't at the sprint review.
And it's a real world genuine problem, especially if the stakeholders and customers aren't doing Scrum, aren't really aware of agile delivery. Getting their time to attend the sprint review is a big challenge.
Yeah, we're laughing about it, but this is a genuine real world problem with genuine reasons for it.
And the only way to make them attend is to show them value, to make it worth their while.
Make them attend.
The only way to encourage them to attend, to ensure they attend, that they need to want to attend is the bottom line.
Punishment beating.
Until morale improves.
Sorry, go on again.
The only way to remedy this is to make the customers and stakeholders want to attend so that they see the value in this event and they want to come along. They look forward to it. I've seen teams where the stakeholders look forward to the sprint review. They ask when it's going to be next, what are we going to be showing? They're actively engaged because they've seen some benefit in it before. They've attended before. They've seen some stuff that they like. They've given some feedback and then seen that feedback acted on by the team. And then it starts this nice cycle where they're more engaged with the whole product itself. And it makes the product owner's life easier.
Exactly. Build it and they will come.
Again. So what's another great example of a Scrum but?
Okay, line managers are also Scrum Masters. Yeah, this might be a bit of a technicality. Maybe it isn't a Scrum but certainly if you've got your management at the events, if you've got your management at the sprint retrospective, you've got the hidden gun. So you're not necessarily going to be open and honest about all the problems that the team think they have if their hiring and firing manager is sat right next to them in the room.
This is going to cause transparency issues.
Exactly, yeah. Nice.
If you've got the boss effectively sat there, even if their role title within the team is product owner, if everyone in the team knows they're actually the boss of that team from an organizational perspective, that's going to affect the way communication happens.
Exactly that. Right, Scrum but.
We do weekly planning and we forecast our work, but those forecasts are treated as commitments. We still have Gantt charts. We still have set in stone release schedules that we promise to our customers. So we have to stick to them.
Teams are shouted at if they fail to meet their commitments from sprint planning.
Yeah, we ask them for estimates and treat them as commitments or deadlines.
So yeah, I think this would count as a Scrum but because we're committing to an overarching goal, but we know that the scope has to be negotiable in some sense if we're doing complex work.
What are your feelings, Dunk, when you walk into an organization that apparently are doing Scrum and then you see a Gantt chart?
Well, obviously I kick over a few chairs and rip the Gantt chart off the wall, which I think is a perfectly reasonable reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good indicator of whether an organization is embracing agile or whether they've still got a little further to go, where they're running under this fragile structure where the teams are agile, but the actual management above it is still a bit more waterfall and predictive. As soon as a Gantt chart comes out, alarm bells start ringing, and I'm thinking, okay, where is this set in stone commitment coming from?
So Jeff Sutherland used to I almost got through the Jeff Sutherland mention. I'll try again.
Did Jeff Sutherland have anything to say about this? I'm pretty sure I recall him saying something.
Jeff Sutherland used to pick up the Gantt chart and say, how often have these things been right for you? And typically the managers would say, well, never. They're never right, but this is just how it's done. And then he'd literally tear them up and say, well, let's see where we are in a couple of weeks and take it from there.
They're created with the best of intentions, but the instant they're written, they're immediately out of date. Mm-hmm. Yet we still burn a lot of money creating them. And it gives us this illusion of certainty, an illusion of security, that if it's written down that this thing, this colored block will be delivered on this date, it kind of makes people think that, yes, that's true, that will happen. But just because it's written down, that's one of the negatives.
I mean, I forget the exact numbers, but if you've got something like 100 Gantt chart tasks, and you've got 96% probability of each one being correct, and you've got all these dependencies, it means there's an over 90% chance that the entire thing is wrong. Just because if each one is dependent upon the other one, unless you've got a very ridiculously high degree of certainty, the whole thing's just a waste of time.
Certainly for complex. Perhaps the teams do have a ridiculously high degree of certainty. Perhaps they're dealing with complicated or simple problems, in which case Scrum might not be the right thing for them. Scrum but might be the correct thing if they're dealing with simple or complicated problems.
Absolutely. If you're baking cakes or if you're doing accounts, then keep using your Gantt charts. But if you're doing complex work, then maybe consider using something else. Okay, so my Scrum but is we have a daily Scrum, but it's really a status reporting meeting where the team tell the Scrum Master how they're doing with regards to their tasks. And this is where development teams say, yeah, we have a daily Scrum, but it's just a waste of time. And normally when they say that, it's because they don't understand the purpose of the event. It's their opportunity to inspect and adapt their progress towards the sprint goal.
And this is really common. This happens in so many daily scrums that it starts off with the best of intentions and turns into a status reporting meeting, particularly if the product owner or line manager are there, coming back to what you said earlier, or particularly if the scrum master is a scrum master in title only, but is actually more like a project manager. I've seen that in quite a few organizations. Their scrum master wants to empower the team and do all this great agile stuff, but actually they behave a bit more like a traditional project manager, and that's where the status reporting comes from, I've seen.
And not even that, even where the Scrum Master is a great servant leader and they're starting with the best of intentions, they also often think that it's their responsibility to make sure the daily Scrum is running okay, rather than trusting the team and stepping in if there's a problem. Okay,
so one more. We have our daily Scrum, but because we're virtual now, it takes longer than 15 minutes. It takes about half an hour for our daily Scrum. So we do Scrum, but our daily Scrums are a bit longer. No big deal, right?
Yeah, that's quite controversial because I don't know if it is a big deal. If they're having a good daily Scrum in virtual, then they're probably doing better than most teams are. And if it's blowing the time box, I'm not convinced that's the end of the world.
This one would be on the lesser extent of Scrum, but still not Scrum.
They're on the naughty step.
15 minutes, job done, game over. If you're not doing that, you're not doing Scrum. Okay, that's a topic for discussion. But of all the offences teams can create in violation of the Scrum rules.
Well, Scrum's quite clear on this. It's immutable. You can't pick and choose. But I think sometimes you'll be put on the Scrum naughty step, and sometimes you'll be put into Scrum detention. And then sometimes you're just going to be expelled from Scrum school.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up, Dunk. Scrum, but how are we going to summarize all of these sins that we've been talking about?
Sins. Probably not by calling them sins. Scrum is a lightweight framework. It's designed to be, the bare minimum that we need in order that we can be empirical, in order that we can inspect and adapt about our product and our process. So in some cases, these Scrum buts, they're not sins. The team have found that Scrum doesn't quite work for them and they've adapted it. And that's fine. But in most cases, in my humble opinion, I think we'll find, is that the right use of the quotes? I'm not sure. In my humble opinion, I think it's that teams have found it's too difficult for them to do Scrum, so they started doing Scrum but. And you have to be honest with yourself. Why are we doing Scrum but rather than Scrum and?
And every team is going to go through a phase of doing Scrum but when they first start going down this path. As long as the team recognizes that that's happening and are inspecting and adapting ways to get better, to get to work towards doing Scrum, assuming that's their goal, it's not the end of the world if we're doing Scrum but.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As you said earlier, the point isn't to do Scrum. The point isn't even to do Agile. The point is to be more responsive to change and build a better product and have more technical excellence.
Scrum and. So adding stuff to the Scrum framework, good. Scrum but, taking stuff away from the Scrum framework, bad.
Scrum chat.
Scrum chat. So there we go. Scrum but explained. If you found this video useful, helpful, interesting, or stupid, please go ahead and click that little like button and have a think about subscribing to the channel. This has been the Scrum Master's Guide to the Galaxy, and we will see you on the next one.